2020. Scituate Planning Board. I'd like to bring
All
this meeting.
participants are muted.
I don't know why it's doing that. Just ignore it.
Okay.
We want them muted.
All right, fine. Public participation is via remote access only. For audio participation, it's 425-436-6308, 425-436-6338, or 425-436-6300. Access code 538960.
All participants are muted.
For video participation, https://join.freeconferencecall.com/Scituate1. I'd like a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Ms. Burbine?
Aye.
Mr. Bornstein?
Aye.
Ms. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
Thank you, all in favor.
All right, we have a continued public hearing, site plan administrative review, and special permit for density and tandem parking in the Village Center and Neighborhood District, Greenbush Village Center Subdistrict, Greenbush Gateway District, 18 Ford Place. Applicant, Don McGill. Owner, JB Realty, Scituate LLC, and with him is his attorney, Mr. Galvin.
Yes, good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir. Okay.
So just in case you hear all participants are muted, that's when someone from the public is calling in. We authorize doing that every time.
Okay? Okay.
So,
Let's identify yourselves again.
Don McGill, the applicant. We went through planning, we went through the design review and submitted, they asked us to change the roof line, which we ended up doing and resubmitting. This shows the new roof line of what they were looking for. And we've also made all the changes that were recommended by the board with regard to the trees and addressed Chessia's, we received Chessia's comments last Thursday. We addressed all his changes as well with the current set of plans that we submitted. I think we submitted them on Monday regarding the fence between the patio area. We no longer have to do the tandem parking. That's been eliminated.
Okay,
That's
one
been-
of the things you need to understand, Mr. McGill.
Yep.
Anything that came in after a week ago today has not been reviewed, and we will not be discussing it this evening. I mean, those are the rules. Am I not correct?
That's correct. The board has not seen those new plans.
We haven't seen them.
Hasn't seen the comment letter. The only thing I gave the board that came in after the deadline was the public benefit, because I think that that is very germane to the conversation tonight.
The only thing I would add is that we got the comment letter from Mr. Cheshire on Thursday, so
At 12:57,
we
an
couldn't-
hour after
we
the
couldn't
deadline.
respond in a timely fashion, so we responded as quick as we could. And I'm not blaming anybody, but we couldn't respond in time because we didn't get the comment letter from Mr. Cheshire to respond to until after the deadline had already passed. So
All right. Point taken. All right. So, Karen?
Why don't we have John
All right.
give his comments first?
Okay.
Well, unless they have anything else.
Do you have anything else?
Josia?
on the public realm benefits.
Yes.
We owed you two pieces of information regarding the proposed landscaping project at the park. And this was emailed over to Karen on Monday.
Right.
It was a missing element of the letter that I had already submitted, and I couldn't prepare it, and Mr. McGill couldn't prepare it. It had to be prepared by Grady, and that was an itemized breakdown of that project
All
cost.
participants are muted.
This is what you're talking about?
Right.
Yes.
So we were asked to provide that as an itemized breakdown. That's everything that we have with the total cost of $23,550. We had previously been willing just to pay a sum of money, but there was some concern that that didn't comply technically with the bylaw requirements. So this is the revised estimate. We're also, as surety for our work, willing to allow
All participants are
all
muted.
occupancy certificates to be withheld until the time the work is completed. So nothing, we couldn't sell any unit, we couldn't do anything to dispose of it, and that seems to make a hell of a lot of sense as surety. That's what you would typically do in a circumstance like this, withhold an occupancy certificate.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Chesia?
Hold on, I gotta, unmute him.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So I think that, I can just, I'm not sure exactly what you want me to go through, but I can touch on sort of the main points from my review, if that makes the most sense.
Yes,
And the first thing is, the plans I reviewed, the architectural plans aren't consistent with the site plans. The architectural plans still had 8 parking spaces, 2 tandem, under the building, 2 tandem spaces. So the plans need to be consistent, especially since the architectural plans had a more recent date than the site plans.
John, are you speaking of the plans that were filed on Monday? That we
No, I'm speaking, the plans that I reviewed, I believe, are the ones, I have to look at my letter to see what the date of those architectural.
That's incorrect.
The
921 is
9820, 9820.
the review comments,
There's a new set of
921.
plans, is that what I understand?
96 is the design review too. So it was.
all right, this is getting a little confusing about what we're reviewing. Karen?
All right, there was an August 31st stamped-in set. That's what the board has.
Okay,
That's what that's what John Chesia reviewed.
right?
All right, there's a second set of architectural plans so architectural plans were received then too. Architectural plans were received on the 8th. They have an 8/6 date on those.
Yeah.
Those have been forwarded to the design review committee as well as the board for their comment. I do not have comments back on that. So John's site plan comments are based on the late August submittal.
All right. Yes, Mr. McGill?
So when we received Cheshie's comments at 12:57 on Thursday, an hour after the deadline, we quickly turned them around and resubmitted based off his comments, and they are dated 9/21, and the architecturals are dated 9/6. So as soon as we got his comments after the deadline, we turned them around as quick as we could. If I had gotten them, a little before the deadline, I probably could have turned around on time. So you have, and based off the site plan, since this was a site plan review, all the parking spaces and everything are updated on the site plan. So the site plan is the correct plan. The architecturals, once the architecturals and everything, once the site's approved, then we'll go through and update the parking spaces or whatever. He just drew in cars underneath the back. The architect just drew in cars, but it's a site plan. That's the.
Which we have not seen at this point.
Correct.
We have not seen this.
Correct.
So,
But how, can I ask the board, how am I to, if I get his comments from our last meeting, if I get them an hour after the deadline, how am I to turn them around before the deadline?
I have no control over that, unfortunately. Karen, can we,
All right, so on this project, we've contracted for 3 reviews. We have had 2 reviews. And so they turn them around in a timely manner as well as they can. We don't promise that every set is going to be reviewed.
But I had a deadline.
In a timely, in the manner if it's supplied after the deadline. The review engineer needs time to review the plans after they're submitted.
So what was our previous meeting was over a month ago, and it was 57 minutes after the deadline, I get the comments?
People are entitled to vacations.
He was on vacation.
That may be the case, but was he on vacation for a month? I'm just saying,
All right,
it's
you know what?
frustrating, it's frustrating.
frustrating for you, it's frustrating for us.
57 minutes after the deadline.
All right. Please understand
I'm just
that
frustrated.
this meeting, this whole
It's on the
project,
agenda.
excuse me,
All right,
excuse
all
me,
right, all right, all right.
we are not closing this meeting tonight. We have to talk about the public benefit,
I understand. I
all right?
understand.
Okay. Mr. Chessy, you do have any further comments, sir?
Sure, so, and, maybe they did correct them, but there wouldn't have been any opportunity for me to re-review any of their changes anyway. So, there's a process, you submit stuff, you review it, you submit it, and then if you want me to review it, fine, but I need, time too. So I apologize for being 57 minutes late, but if I was right on time, I wouldn't have had a chance to look at anything resubmitted either.
All right, let's move on.
Anyway, so there's the inconsistency there. There should be a detail for the fence between project and 14 Ford Place. They showed a fence, but there was no detail what that fence is going to look like. The board should, I think, review all of the proposed landscaping, parking lot plantings, etc. I think the walkway in between the building and the parking spaces, they widened it from 2.5 to 3 feet. That's still pretty narrow, in my opinion, especially now that they've got the shared access. They have more room. It seems like they could put a little bit more space there. That's where everybody's, you got a building on one side, you got cars on the other, potentially overhanging a little bit. That's generally, you'd like more space than that. I'm not sure if the fire department commented on that or not, because sometimes it affects their access too. Other than the architectural plans, the other bigger thing I think would be the pervious pavers. The detail doesn't meet DEP requirements. It's kind of I don't know exactly what they're proposing there, because they have pervious pavers with a pipe underneath. It wasn't really modeled correctly. They're not taking credit for infiltration through pervious pavers. I'm not sure that the water in the 100-year storm would soak through the pervious pavers. I think we all know having pervious pavement is a good thing. It reduces runoff. It's recharging water, especially for walkways or, one parking space. But I think it still needs to be designed appropriately and detailed appropriately and maintained appropriately. The other comment I had, and I believe Mr. McGill mentioned something about that, and these may be taken care of, and that'd be great, and it won't be a big deal to probably check them once I get that information. But they had basically a parking space, like a 2-foot strip, and then a paver patio that looks exactly like the driveway, and you'd really want to have some sort of delineation between them so somebody doesn't just look at it as more driveway. And then I do think they need a little more rigorous construction plan. They're pretty much completely using almost every inch of this site. So where do you stockpile materials? How do you stage it? Where do you put all the, just drive by any house under construction. There's a lot of stuff sitting around, dumpsters, materials, trucks. Where do they all go? How do they handle that? What are they going to do to not totally disrupt the neighborhood for their project?
Okay.
That's the short list.
All right, thank you. Karen?
All right, so I read John's report, and I agree with his point about the plans aren't coordinated. The architectural plans, like I just stated, the design review committee, I sent them to them for their comments, and I'm going to ask at the design review committee meeting on 9/30 what's their final recommendation. Their recommendation to date is that they do not like the building. So I'm going to ask for their recommendation, and since I asked them to reply individually, and I've only gotten one response. I note that the partial site distance is on the plan. I don't know if it meets ASHTO requirements. I need to make a finding. I think I need some more information there. I didn't didn't see
What
snow
was it,
storage.
Karen? I'm sorry, I missed that.
The site distance. There's sight lines on the plan, but I don't know how far they are. I don't know if it meets ASHTO requirements. So
Okay,
when we
gotcha.
make the findings for this project, I need to know if it meets the site distance requirements.
Did you get that, Steve?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I just didn't hear the first part.
Okay.
I didn't see any snow storage areas on the plan. I agree with John on the erosion control and construction sequencing. I don't really see how they're gonna park during construction and where they're gonna stockpile anything. You usually ask for significant plans on that. I will note that this does not need a NIPDIS permit because it doesn't disturb more than an acre. I would recommend that a surety bond for the project be required. The pervious pavement detail doesn't meet the DEP requirements, and it's very low in gravel and stone compared to all your other details in town. I heard back from town council about 6 o'clock today on the condo docks, and so I haven't even had a chance to look at that. We have got no comments from fire or traffic. I don't know which one driveway access. Essentially, the applicant is asking for the driveway to be approved in two different ways. The first way is with no shared access. The second way is with a shared access. And to that regard, I do not have any easement associated with that. So the board probably wants to talk about that tonight, and the board probably wants to talk about the public benefit. I think a few things are missing from the public benefit. I asked both John Chesia and DPW to review the cost estimate that they provided, and I got emails from them saying that it's inadequate for them to review. They need a quantified estimate. I'm not 100% sure of the significance to the town. That hasn't been provided. This will require a bond as well. The board has to decide if it's okay with the timing of the public benefit being done prior to occupancy. I don't have a list of permits that are needed for the public benefit. And there's no, somebody from the town has to approve this public benefit. So somebody has to give permission for them to do the work on this park. I have been trying today to figure out who owns the land, whether it's quote Town of Scituate or Town of Scituate Conservation Commission. I don't know that. Town council doesn't know that at the moment. There's no deed in the assessor's files. I think the board has to decide if this is enough of a public benefit. I did review it with the town administrator today, and he thought that perhaps a few more, some trees, some grasses, maybe maintenance for a year, but he doesn't want to see a wood chip desert. And maybe extend the guardrail in front. That's the basic issues that I have at the moment that I think the board needs to decide how you want to give the applicant guidance on some of these.
Can I respond to some of the comments?
Yes, sir.
On some of the comments made by Mr. Cheshire and some of the comments made by Ms. Joseph, I think the revised plan set will answer those questions.
Okay.
And certainly understand that you have to look at it, make sure that they do answer those questions. With respect to the construction management, if you want a kind of a narrative as to how we would, store the materials and do that, we will. It's a 10,000 square foot site. Of course it's tight. But, you know, Don has been doing this for a long time. He works on a lot of commercial spaces where you have to work within the footprint of a building. You can't even be outside the thing, so that is something we will give you in a narrative form. I've been to all the design review committee meetings. I know Karen and Ms. Lambert have been there as well. The only thing that the design review board didn't like about the building, at least what they communicated when I was present, was the roof layout. And we asked them what they wanted to do with the roof. They gave us direction, and we did that. And we did ask them, and I remember Don doing it specifically because he said, I don't want to do this and then find that there's something else you don't like. Tell me if there's something else you don't like. And they said at that point it was just the roof. So we revised the roof design. They didn't like a very exposed wall. They wanted something a little bit more traditional with a pitch on the sides. So hopefully they'll approve that.
It's the exact roof that's in the drawing down.
Right. With respect to the ASHTO, I don't know why we can't do that. The road's fairly straight there in the front, so, and there's already an existing road there, so I don't think that's a problem. With respect to snow storage, you know, this is a condominium, so we'll remove the snow and not have it stored on site if it becomes any type of an impediment to people parking or making turning movements in any way, shape, or form. With respect to a bond, you know, this is a condominium development. What would you bond? I mean, the reason we would put up a bond in a subdivision case would be because the town might have to step in and complete some portion of the project. This is purely private. There'd be nothing public for the public to step in and complete. The only effective way to secure performance for us is to say, deny us an occupancy certificate or deny us a building permit. No building permit until certain site work is done. No occupancy permit until you've, you know, made it safe and accessible and the building is occupiable. I don't know what you'd have a bond to do. In terms of the work that we propose for the public benefit, again, we would be completely amenable to tying an occupancy certificate for our units to the completion of that work. Don't have an issue with that at all. On the condominium documents, I know I got those in before the last meeting, so that's completely out of our control. These are draft documents at this particular point, but these are the same documents that Don has used with a couple of his other condominium developments. They've been vetted by the town council in Duxbury and vetted by the town council in Pembroke. So I'm sure that you'll get favorable comments on that, and I drafted them, so if there's a problem, Don will let me know. In terms of the easement document, we've provided a plan. We have an easement agreement that is with the abutter, Bob
Berwick.
Yep.
We're just waiting his comments. And let me explain. We knew from the beginning that this is a project that had to stand on its own, and what we would like you to approve is the project standing on its own. But we would like you also to make a finding as a part of our project that we have an acceptable common driveway situation. Because we don't know whether Mr. Burke will ultimately agree. He said he would agree. He said that he thinks that makes sense for his project too. We certainly think it improves circumstance on our project. So all we would ask you to do is, if you like the way the common driveway configuration is done, make a note in your decision saying that in the event you're able to get an approval with the neighbor, and in the event that the board is satisfied with a common driveway agreement, the board will accept a configuration like this. It could be withheld to you for another day, but it will at least give us the idea that what we've shown you is okay. In terms of the public benefit improvements, we're not mind readers. We don't know really what's going on with respect to the Conservation Commission. It sounded to us from day one that they weren't certain what they wanted to do. That's why we offered the money. So it could be done at some point, that it was convenient to everybody, that they would have control over the money and do it. And what we heard was that, no, you have to propose that you're going to do the work. So Don and Mr. Grady went out to the site. you know, regardless of whether it's owned by the town or the commission, it's technically town property. It might be under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. And I'm certain that it would be the Conservation Commission that would permit this project. I doubt very much that it would be done under a notice of intent because there's no wetlands there. And there's no wetlands in close proximity to this. But it would require either a notice of intent or a request for determination of applicability. But if the Conservation Commission doesn't want to do it, or they don't want to do it this year, or they want to wait till another time, we can't do any more than what we've done. In terms of it providing a significant benefit, I did write a letter. I explained it's a walking distance to this property. It's certainly an amenity that's close by to this project. It's the one that everybody kind of identified that made the most sense. It's the one that we heard that the commission wanted us to try to work on a plan with. You know, we've spent $1,600 on the plan already, and we're happy to do it. And if somebody wants us to be responsible for maintenance for a year or reduce the amount of wood chips, all they have to do is tell us and we'll do it.
And the only reason they put wood chips there is because right now it's a bunch of dirt because there's no irrigation. So if you put grass there, it's not going to grow because there's no irrigation, there's nothing to water it. So that's why we propose wood chips. We'll do whatever you want there, but grass doesn't make sense because it's not going to grow. There's no source of water.
All right, thank you. Karen?
All right, so under the site plan approval requirements, you are allowed to ask for security for a project. You've done this for several other projects, and you ask that the landscaping, parking, drainage, signs, lighting, and conditions imposed by the planning board be secured by some type of surety. Agreed. We agree on the public benefit that we don't want, that the grass is not a good idea, I think, in this situation. However, when I met with the town administrator today, he seemed to think that, you know, you're taking out one tree, why can't another tree be added? Why can't some grasses or something be added so that it's not a sea of wood chips?
I mean, we can add grasses. I'll add grasses. I'll add whatever you want. But there's no water to water them. You'll be relying on Mother Nature, which is fine. I'll put a tree in there. I don't care. It's just that, again, there's no water to water it.
Well, the tree would have to have a tree bag, and you would have to be responsible for maintenance for a year.
We would be responsible for
That's fine. I'll water a tree for a year.
All right.
So I think the applicant, at a minimum, is going to have to get in touch with the town administrator to get permission to do the improvements.
I thought the planning board was the one who said last time we met, the planning board was the one that approves.
The planning board approves the public benefit. I'm talking about
just trying to-
permission to do the work on town property.
It's really about the implementation, right? That we don't control the land itself, the town of Scituate.
I don't have a problem at all contacting the town administrator and getting
It has to
permission.
be.
It's not my unwillingness to do it. I'll do whatever you want. I just don't know what.
You want.
Yeah, it's very.
Well, we're going to figure it out, okay? We're going to figure it out. Right, Karen?
Yep, we're going to figure it out.
All right, I'll open it up to the board for further discussion. Steve? Comments?
Well, I think we've covered a number of items here. Some things that I haven't heard about yet that I would like to make sure we get. One is the water usage requirements for the new facility. I don't know that we've gotten that yet. I would like to have that. What else did I have on my list? The lighting plan. Was there a lighting? Does this latest plan address lighting?
The architectural show, well, I don't know if you have the latest, I don't know what you were given, but the architectural show, there's just the only outside lighting is a sconce by the porch windows, which is on there now.
Did we address emergency vehicle access yet?
We haven't heard from the fire department yet.
We're not changing anything to the road.
Excuse me?
Are we expecting Karen to get the fire department to weigh in here?
We hope to,
He
yes.
told me multiple times he's gonna comment. I mean, I send him an email once a week asking him for the comments, and I haven't gotten anything. Just like traffic rules, I haven't gotten any comments from traffic rules either.
No, I think we should send, put up or shut up type email this time. We'll take their silence as no comment.
Well, that's one way to do it.
I mean, I'll send one more comment tomorrow. I mean, one more request, but, I mean, I've tried.
Okay. Are you all set, Steve, or do you have any more on your list?
What's that?
Do you have any more on your list?
I think we
Q&A session has started.
about the open space and outdoor amenity space, and that it didn't necessarily conform with the bylaw.
That's on the new set.
I'm wondering if that was addressed in the latest site plan as well?
It was.
It was.
Well, they put a patio on the place that you have right now, too. So they
And we fenced it off.
They did put a patio and they did fence it off.
Okay. I mean, I tend to agree with a lot of comments that we've had here. We just need to nail down the specifics, like, the DRC recommendation. I think we should understand if what you're proposing is a common driveway, it's a common driveway, and then we'll sign, that will be what we make a decision on, if you will.
Can I,
Hang on.
If you're talking about either or, I think we have to go in with one and then leave room for discussing a change from what the approval is.
Okay.
with,
Mr. McGill?
with regard to the easement, obviously, I can't sign the easement until the project's approved because I can't give away rights to that land until I know that, so it's like a chicken and an egg, that's why we're looking for both ways, that if the board approves it and we're willing to do the shared driveway, then we'll, once the project's approved, we'll sign
I
the
think that's what
agreement.
Steve was saying. It's,
Yeah.
except,
Does the physical design change between the two?
There is.
Yeah.
yes.
We want you to approve the project with the project all on our own property, but we would like your at least advisory opinion, and then you can reserve the right to approve it further if you want for the common driveway, if we can get an easement agreement with Mr. Berwick.
Everybody wants to do the shared driveway.
Right.
That's what we're all moving in the right direction, the same direction. It
Right,
benefits everyone.
Everybody.
All right, so I have actually spoken to Mr. Berwick, and Mr. Berwick is probably going to, he knows, he has to do he has special permit, he has to do a modification to a special permit. So he understands what he has to do. The part that's the common driveway between the two is not actually shown. On your other common driveways, you have an easement area where the common driveway is shown. I didn't see that. Maybe I'm blind, but,
Area A, easement 1,200 square feet. Easement area B, 1,200 square feet. These are the ones I sent you on Monday.
all right, so I guess it's on the new plans that you'll be getting.
All right.
Okay.
She gave you the new one. This is the new one. So like, here's what it says. Area A and everything.
All right, Steve, are you all set?
One other, they said they addressed the landscaping comments that Ben had, right? So,
Yeah,
the only other item I had was, there was a discussion about the drainage being too close to the building, too close to the foundation. Was that addressed as well?
yeah, we submitted a sketch from the architect showing what we do in that location, and he's signed it and stamped it and submitted it with it.
Okay.
All set?
Building commissioner didn't want to comment on that. I mean, he said they basically, if an architect is going to stamp it, then, you know, it's.
They're
Yeah,
responsible.
that's fine.
It's probably going to be
Yeah.
fine.
All right. Rebecca, do you have any comments?
Not right at this moment.
Ben?
I guess obviously there's several different things we could go into. Guess I'll tackle the public benefit aspect first. All
Why don't you take off your mask so that we can hear
Okay.
you and speak a little louder?
right.
Thank you.
Can everyone hear me now? So on the topic of the public benefit, I appreciate having, something like more concrete to look at with potential cost estimates and a narrative letter to explain what's going on. I think it's helpful to see something on paper. Obviously, there's some clarifications and some more details that it sounds like we need. But on the topic of, I guess I'll just say my opinion. I think that probably when I saw the wood chip area, I also thought that could be an opportunity space for some sort of planting plan, probably with some sort of native low input plants that could deal with the drought conditions and something that's more naturalized just to make it feel more, because no one's going to use that wood chip space anyway. So at least if we restore some habitat value and aesthetics there, then it might improve that space a little.
I think people would be like with dogs or,
Yeah, maybe.
with the wood chip area.
But then we don't want to create
Yeah.
then if they don't clean up, and then it becomes.
Yeah, I just worry about anything after a year, even if we maintain it for a year,
Excuse me,
what's going to
Steve?
happen after that?
Definitely not just lawn, maybe
No.
some sea grasses or something like that, but I agree that it would be a waste of time and money to try to plant a lawn there without any
Yeah, nobody
watering.
suggested that.
No,
He
not
was not suggesting that.
Yeah, we're all saying the word grasses, but I think
Well, we're
we mean
ornamental grasses.
plump forming grasses, not turf grass.
Right, ornamental,
Yeah.
okay?
But so that's my.
Excuse me? I didn't catch that.
I guess on the topic of surety, my biggest concern really with this type of site and where I feel like surety in the site plan regs could be warranted is in regards to specifically the stormwater system. It's a pretty complex system.
Q&A session is over.
We've had, obviously, like this board sees a lot of issues with drainage and flooding and stormwater and things of that nature. So I think making sure that that system is installed to spec and functioning as designed is really important, and on a tight site where we have abutters and areas that could be negatively impacted with stormwater issues. So that's kind of my feeling on that. I don't have an opinion as to an amount or what that form of surety might look like, but that's just kind of where I'm coming from. And then I think that's it. I'll look for the new plans, like in terms of like the landscape changes and stuff. I'll review that in more detail in the latest plan set.
It's not a significant landscape change.
Yeah, my biggest thing in the original one, biggest issue was probably the street trees.
And I did some research on the street trees. Those are Norway maples. Those are on the invasive and prohibited list.
The newly spec'd ones are? Or
No, the existing trees that are, the new ones are red maples.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the newly planted
The
ones.
new ones are red maples, which are, a very good tree for that.
Right.
area.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, not pre-existing conditions or anything. So I guess that's all I have. Again, I understand it's a tight site. I understand it's a more urban type lot development than we normally would see in Scituate, but that's kind of in some ways what this village district was looking for with the new zoning. You guys know, we're all having growing pains with this because this is one of the first, or if not the first project to come in on this, so we're kind of learning the regs as you are. And so we just want to make sure that we get everything kind of right here in terms of what the new bylaws we're going for. And other than that, I'd say my biggest thing is still going to be the stormwater, just making sure that it functions right and that it's kind of done correctly, just because it is a very technical aspect of this project, and it's very tight and close to the abutting property line and all that.
Question on the bond, on a potential bond for stormwater. If we gave a bond, hypothetically speaking, would the town then step in and fix it on this site for the benefit of the residents? Because it doesn't seem customary or even appropriate on a condominium site to actually bond it. And I'm not being critical, so don't take it the wrong way. I'm wondering it from a legal perspective. Like in a subdivision where you have a roadway that the town is going to be granted an easement in maybe some subdivisions, the roadway is going to become a public way, and maybe the town's going to accept the way and the drainage easements. Absolutely, 100% it has to be completed because it's going to become a public aspect of a project. On this, it'll never be public. We fully expect that when this project is permitted, that there'll be an inspection and there'll be a budget for the inspections. Mr. Cheshire's engineers are going to have to certify with an as-built plan that it's built in accordance with the plan that's already been improved. And as I said, I think the most effective way of ensuring that he does what he's promised to do, and his engineers have certified they'll do, is to withhold the permit from him to sell these things. And that's not what he wants me to say, but that's honestly the most effective way to get him to do something. And in a subdivision setting, remember, the developer has the choice to put up cash and get all the lots released before they do any work. They have the ability to put up a passbook or a bond, or they can hold lots. None of that really kind of works in this situation because you're dealing with a condominium and it's all on private property. There's no infrastructure on any public property here. So again, I think the bond...
That's not exactly true. I mean, there's...
The sewer and water.
The modification of the property is affecting stormwater flow to the neighbors, right? And the surety is not just
on site, right?
To be there until you get your occupancy permit. You know, plenty of projects have stopped in the middle and left a mess behind, right? So the surety is there to let the town at least put the site right so it doesn't create more problems if somebody's walking away from it as well.
So is the town going to want an easement to be able to do that work? Because you'd need an easement from us in order to be able to enter onto the private property and perform that work if we fail to do it. I mean, the good thing about this project is it's one building.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's multiple buildings here. We're not going to get anything here. I mean, I take the point, and I think you're probably right about the sewer connection. But, I mean, if you want us to put the sewer connection in at the commencement of the site work, we'll do that right at the beginning. I think it's probably necessary to go in there right from the beginning. But the stormwater system all discharges on site. It doesn't offlow anywhere. It infiltrates right on this site. So, I mean, if you want the bond...
I would agree with that if it's completely built and in place, right? The surety, by that time, we'll release the surety, right? The idea is to make sure it gets to that stage, right? That we don't leave a mess half done.
And no one disagrees from that perspective. We agree on that. No one wants a mess there. We don't want it either.
Right.
All right. Patty?
And we don't expect it either, but you know, it's happened before.
Thank you, Steve. Patty?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay, Karen, do you have anything further that you want to add?
400. Like the small drainage system. That you've asked for surety on other projects, Toll Brothers, 50 Country Way, they were all basically the same stuff. And so I'm just, that's going to be the board's decision, but I'm just pointing out what the zoning bylaw says and what's allowed.
If this is, I mean, this isn't a Toll Brothers project, this is 5 condos in one building. This has 16 drainage culverts. The last one I did had 400. This is, you know, it's not it's a big to-do about a small portion of it. I mean, it's the sewer connections on a private way. I'm happy to connect that up right away. Like I said, Cheshiere has to sign off on the drainage. The engineer has to design it, and he has to stamp it. So there's multiple layers of approvals to do the drainage system.
So could I say something based on that.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Based
yeah.
on that, this is a big project on a small piece of land, which we all acknowledge that. We have a huge growing pain. What Mr. Pritchett is referring to is exactly what I think about, is that, oh my God, we got in too deep, this is too hard for us to deal with, and you gotta walk away. That's why I will want a surety. And that doesn't have anything to do with you as a businessman or anything else. It's just doing business in Scituate, I think, is a little different because of our stormwater issues.
We're going to look at the cost of getting a surety bond. It's
All right.
probably not even worth arguing about.
It isn't, seriously.
Okay.
This is all, your attorney will deal with this.
Yep.
Okay?
I'll let him.
Let him deal with it,
Yeah.
that's why he gets the big bucks.
We do have some public participation.
All right.
Want to go to public
Yes,
Q&A
we'll go,
for-
yes, absolutely.
This is the formal Q&A for questions and comments. Please listen to the directions on your phone if you'd like to question or comment.
Q&A session has started.
You're going to hit *6 on your phone if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please, to get into the queue.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's 4 feet lower than it was.
Is that you?
Okay.
Mary Lou Consilvio, 22 Ford Place. Just really.
Tell us.
You have to speak up. You have to speak up. Karen.
Mary Lou Consilvio, 22 Ford Place. Just comments on, actually some things that Steve had said. Because the lot is small and the building square footage is large, the narrowness of the drive is a concern. Fire and rescue, being able to come down the street to access the different areas. Also snow plowing, concerned about where that snow is going to go. I did hear someone mention that it might be removed. Is that an assurance that it will be removed? Because there's really no place to put it. The other thing is just the overall traffic during the construction time and afterwards, because Ford Place and McDonald Terrace are such small areas, and the amount of residents coming and going and people to the post office, it produces a lot of traffic for a small area. Concerned about that traffic. And just in general, concerned about lighting. I know they said some lighting on the side of the building, but where Ford Place has the lights up and down the street, is there any chance that McDonald Terrace would have those type of lights as well?
We are not proposing any lighting on McDonald Terrace. So if that's something that this neighbor is opposed to, we're not going to be proposing any. In terms of the snow removal, the best part about a condominium development is part of the fee that people pay every month when you live in a condominium that can be enforced and under the threat of losing your condominium is payment of those fees. We'll have a budget that includes a reserve, so we'll have the resources and the ability to remove what we say. And it's very different from single-family homes where you have to argue with people to contribute in a private homeowners association. This is a condominium, it'll be built in, and there'll probably be a professional management company that's going to oversee all of it. Even for a 5-lot or a 5-unit condominium, that's customary now to have a management company, and Don's had a management company on all of his projects that I've been involved in. So in terms of the narrowness of the street, we're not proposing to do anything to make it any more narrow. Ford Place is staying exactly the way it is. All we're doing is coming off McDonald Terrace. We're not proposing to do anything to make it more narrow. And really, there's only parking spaces for 8 cars here, and we don't think it's a significant traffic generator. So hopefully you'll feel the same way too.
One of the issues that I see with McDonald Terrace, it is a private way, and the town, in its infinite wisdom, does not like to plow private ways. And your condominium parking lot is off of McDonald Terrace. So I think something has to be done in terms of making sure that McDonald Terrace is in fact plowed.
Yeah. So there's a statutory process for people that live on private ways to make a request that people contribute to that type of an expense. I don't know what's done there today. I don't know whether the town is plowing it. I don't know whether McDonald Terrace is on the town's plow list, because private ways can be added to a plow list, and they frequently are, particularly when people pay a lot of taxes. But we would obviously commit to plowing as far as our thing without any contribution from anybody else. And if we would certainly be a participant in and are willing to participate in the process of gathering the rest of the homeowners that access off of McDonald Terrace and trying to make a shared arrangement with them.
You're fine with the condition of required snow removal as opposed to snow storage on site?
Yeah, yes, on our site, absolutely. We would live with that condition.
All right. Taryn, did we answer your questions, or do you have any further comments that you would like to make?
Mary Lou.
Mary
So
Lou?
it's Mary Lou.
All right, Mary Lou?
So I think she's muted herself, so I think she was the only one for Q&A, so we're gonna end the formal Q&A.
All right.
Q&A session is over.
Okay, so we have homework, you have homework.
So where are we on the public benefit? Is the board okay with this public benefit with the addition of some other elements added? Like ornamental grasses, guardrail along the front, maybe a tree, maintenance for a year?
All right, how does the board feel about that? Ben?
I mean, I think it can work. I think we're awaiting a comment from Concom or Conservation.
Somebody. They're not going to comment.
They're not.
This is up to us. They're not going to comment.
I will ask again for a comment,
But basically, like the original idea of like them kind of like sponsoring this
No,
has
they're
gone
not
out the
going to.
window. then.
No. it's
I'll
gone to-
extend the guardrail and I'll put in grasses, ornamental grasses. I'll put a bed in there.
No, that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
I'm just trying to think about who. So that's
That's why I'm
done.
trying
That
to
ship has
understand
sailed.
who owns it.
Okay. So that's where the town administrator
Where
talks.
Yes.
Right.
If it's just.
That was my next question.
Then it would be DPW responsibility to maintain, right?
Right now, I believe the answer I got preliminarily today was that DPW maintains this. So that means it's not
Yeah.
conservation.
Right.
But I don't have that as a gospel thing, but like I said, the applicant is gonna have to talk to the TA to get permission to do the work.
Okay. So I would, yeah, if that information is sorted out and we have this orphan of a project somehow gets adopted by somebody willing to step up, and then then we can approve it, do our work. I think that, and I think some sort of additional planting plan in the wood chipped area. My idea is, the way I view it, is more of like think of it more as an ecological restoration project than necessarily a formal landscape plan, because it's just formalized landscape plan is gonna just be more maintenance. Like somebody's gonna expect it to be weeded and mulched and all this
Yeah.
stuff. I think something more along the lines of native, like what you would do for a mitigation project if you're working with
Wetlands.
Concom.
Like
Exactly.
the wetlands.
Think,
Okay.
think of that. They're
Like a
not necessarily going to be
wetland mix of
wetland.
some sort, but only
They're not necessarily
without-
going to be wetland plants.
Exactly.
I don't know what's the existing vegetation is there, but that's kind of how I view it. But something that's also aesthetically going to look nice. And then I could be more on board with that.
I would agree, and I would also say that, what you've provided is a good starting point, but there's probably going to need to be, a little more detailed plan that the DPW can sign off on, right? So, I would just say it's not as simple as taking the schematic that you have and implementing it, but once we figure out who owns it, then I would think that you'd want to, coordinate with them, give them a plan of what you're going to do, so that there's no misunderstanding after the fact here.
All right, Steve, thank you.
But I think the overall plan looks fine, and subject to the changes that we've all just talked about here.
All right, thank you. Rebecca?
I'm going to agree with what I'm going to defer to Ben since he seems to be much more an expert on the plantings.
Okay.
than myself. But more plantings would be great. Obviously something that would live without a lot of maintenance.
Patty?
No, I just want to say thank you for being our first recipient of an open public benefit for us.
Yes.
So we're all looking at you to lead the way.
This is setting a precedent.
This
And so
project,
if
yeah.
it seems that we're being difficult with you, it has to do with, that we have to do this right. And unfortunately, you're the guinea pig. What can I tell you?
So is my wallet.
Hey,
How about the Scituate?
you know, welcome to town. So at any rate,
If they can provide an estimate with quantities and stuff on it, we can, review that.
Right.
I mean, right now, I don't have anything that I can know.
Does the drawings have, I think it has the square footage of pavers on there, on the.
you want a
draw-
list of the plants that you're gonna put in there too. You know, what you're gonna do.
So just a comment, not to derail what you guys were just, am I interrupting?
No, go for it.
The more I thought about this area where you're proposing, it actually really could. It could become a new area where people think like, okay, I'll go to Greenbush and I'll park here and go for a walk or whatever. And also, it'll give more people that don't realize we have that path through the marsh the opportunity to go recreate there or whatever. And I think right now, because it's a little bit sad, that opportunity is kind of lost. In fact, I can't tell you, probably 2/3 of the people that pull in there just pull in there to walk to Dunkin' Donuts, and then they use it just as a parking area for that. And I don't, like, if this is fixed up and looks nice, I think we can avoid that, and people start to see, oh, this is town property, there's a walking trail here, maybe we can park and walk up the driftway or whatever, and I think that doing this right would help avoid that kind of, like, sad
I was
state that
surprised
it's in
how
now.
busy that, I mean, with just where we were trying to scan it, there were constantly people. It's pretty
busy.
actively
It is
used.
busy.
This afternoon,
Yeah.
Sean McCarthy and I went this afternoon to try we were trying to see if, we were trying to follow up a lead on the MBTA easement, and 3 cars were parked there, and people were actually walking down the trail.
Yeah, it was pretty active.
Yep.
I mean, so it's a heavily used piece of area.
Yeah.
And people sit there on the benches, have their coffee and schmooze. So it's utilized, and I think that the more attractive it is, the better it will be utilized.
And I'm all for doing, everything that we have on that thing. If you want to extend the guardrail or replace a tree, taking down that one that's dead and those 2 stumps, and fixing up the guardrail. The only question would be, I mean, there should be some wood chips or some coverings in there, just because, I'm happy to plant some,
We like the wood chips, but.
just not the whole thing.
No.
Yeah, no,
It has to be broken
that's,
up. I mean,
that's
if
fine. I
it's
could-
grasses, ornamental grasses.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It'll help break it up
Right.
and provide privacy for the people sitting there too.
no, and I'll have the architect, that's fine. If that could be one of the conditions of approval, then I'm fine with that.
All right. So, we have to continue this public hearing. Patty?
I move to accept the applicant's request to continue the public hearing for the site plan administrative review with a special permit for the density and tandem parking in the Village Center and Neighborhood District, Greenbush Village Center Sub-District, Greenbush Gateway District for property located at 18 Ford Place until November 5th, 2020 at 7 p.m. and continue the time for action until December 30, 2020.
Is there any earlier date that we could come and visit you before November 5th?
One of the issues that we are dealing with, we are one of the few boards in this town that's actually doing projects. And we try to do one at every meeting. We're running 2 meetings consecutively in November, 2 in December, and we have holidays. We're doing the very best that we can. And I understand it's about the money, Mr. McGill, but there's nothing we can do about it. Nothing. We are slammed, absolutely slammed.
We're pretty full up for October.
If I can ask what happened, I mean, and I know Mr. Chesia said that his deadline was, he got it but that was my deadline, not his deadline to return. So I just need enough time before my deadline, not Mr. Chessie's, to comments, to reply to the comments from the planning board, so that we could have had this all set for this meeting. We
No.
could have had all as a comment just, basically the entire review was of a plan that was
But we
Out of date,
still
so-
had to deal with the public good.
correct, absolutely. I
So-
just would like the comments back in a timely manner so I can address them
Okay.
in time before November 5th.
When can we have the comments back to Mr. McGill?
I don't know, I'll talk to John tomorrow. I have John working on multiple projects.
So, we were that busy.
Yeah.
We are that busy. All right, so, a motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Ms. Burbine?
Aye.
Mr. Bornstein?
Aye.
Ms. Lambert?
Aye.
Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Pritchard?
Aye.
All in favor, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Is the air conditioning on in the windows open?
Are you cold?
That's why I brought a coat.
No, the air conditioning's broken.
Thank you.
All right, we now have the next item on our agenda, which is the housing production plan. And we have someone that's doing this remotely. It's Karen Sonnenberg. Is she on the line? Okay.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
That's
Welcome.
great. Thank you, for including me on your agenda. And as I read through the agenda, I was supposed to be on for 8 o'clock. I mean, it's rare to have the time be so exact.
I do the best
and
I can.
appreciate it.
We can wait a few minutes if you like.
Is that
No, I think it's great. So I have a PowerPoint presentation. We're here tonight to discuss an update of the housing production plan that we prepared in 2015. And that in turn was an update of a plan that we prepared in 2008. So the plan tonight was to present the highlights of the draft plan and then get your comments and questions. So should I just try to download this right now?
Yep, I'm gonna send it over to you to be the presenter, okay?
Some of these early slides are kind of old hat for many of you, but I think it's just important to touch on some of the very basics. And the first one relates to, housing production plans and what they are. And in fact, the guidelines and regulations for doing housing production plans are a subset of Chapter 40B that they were meant to provide greater local control over housing and such that if the town prepares an affordable housing plan that meets all the state's requirements, it gets approved by the state, and then it produces either 0.5% of its year-round housing stock or 1% of its year-round housing stock. It can then kind of what people call have a safe harbor or potentially deny a comprehensive permit for either 1 or 2 years respectively. So, and that's oh my goodness, that's great. And that's called certified. So if you meet your annual housing production goal of 36 units at this point, you get certified, and if a comprehensive permit application comes up that the town determines is inappropriate, the town can deny it without the developer's ability to appeal that decision. If it produces 1% of its year's round housing stock, it gets a 2-year safe harbor. I should mention that year-round housing figure changes when the 2020 census figures come out. It'll be, the housing growth would drive that total figure up, and therefore the percentage will likely go up somewhat, but probably to no more than 38 units per year. Still very challenging for small communities to meet those kinds of goals. So let's see, we gotta do slideshow. So the next slide, I just want to do kind of basics.
Did you send this PowerPoint out? I don't think I have it.
Yeah, we did.
We sent it out.
When did you send it out?
I think we sent it last Friday. Do you want me to go resend it to you?
If you can do it easily, that would be great.
I got
Can't seem to find it.
Oh, did we just lose it again?
No,
No, it's just multitasking.
because I don't know who can see my screen.
Oh, never mind, I found it. Thank you very much.
He found
Okay,
it.
we'll get the presentation back on. But the next slide was basically just a brief description of what is affordable housing, because, you know, it takes a number of specific requirements for a unit to be counted as affordable by the state and then included in the subsidized housing inventory, which are those units that help the town either meet annual housing production goals or get to that 10% affordability goal under 40B. So in order to be included as affordable in these capital A affordable units in the SHI, it has to be available to households earning at or below 80% of area median income. And for Greater Boston right now, for a household of three, that's about $86,650. Those income limits go up. They're adjusted annually. The units have to be permanent, and it either has to be directly subsidized by, you know, a public entity, or it has to be approved by a subsidizing agency in order for the applicant to get the go-ahead to submit a comprehensive permit application. It has to be deed restricted, and communities are moving more and more towards deed restrictions in perpetuity. And it has to, importantly, be affirmatively marketed. So there has to be a plan that's prepared, that's approved by the state, that includes a marketing effort that will extend beyond the locality and try to reach diverse groups and notify them of the development and the affordable housing opportunity in the community. Those are the basic rules on that. So what housing is affordable in Scituate? Now we're talking again about those units that meet all the state qualifications to become part of the subsidized housing inventory. So of the town has 7,163 year-round units, and at this point, 358, or 5%, are currently considered affordable by the state. So you're halfway there. And that's up from 4.33% in 2011. So there has been some progress. There are another 19 units that are part of the Green Bush mixed-use project, or Walden Woods, that'll be eligible for inclusion in the SHI as well, which will increase the SHI units to 377 units, or 5.3%. So there's still movement, there's progress going forward. And as I mentioned before, as the decennial census figures are released, the figures will change. So let's get on to the next. Okay. So just on some of the key demographic and economic trends that were kind of key takeaways in the first part of the housing plan, which is the housing needs assessment, we did demographic, economic, and housing profiles. And then we looked really closely at market conditions and an affordability analysis, looked at SHI units, and deduced some priority housing needs based on the needs, the indicators of needs that were in the other sections. So, in the case of, just briefly, there's been some population growth since 2000, albeit modest. In 2000, less than 18,000 units were part of the housing inventory, and that has increased to 18,500. Oh, population. I'm talking about people. So the population was less than 18,000 in 2000, and according to 2018 census figures, it's grown to 18,591. The town census figure is higher, which is typically the case. It's at 18,729. However, the town census figures count students living with their parents instead of colleges or universities, and also it holds on to numbers of people who have not responded to the town census election inquiries. So it's not unusual. Usually the town census figures are a little bit higher. And clearly there have been some demographic shifts that have basically been driven by the baby boomers, decreasing numbers of children and young adults, and increasing numbers of older residents. I'll just give you an example. Those under 18 comprised 31% of the population in 1980. It's down to 23% based on the 2018 census figures. On the other hand, seniors went from 10% of all residents in 1980 up to 21% based on the 2018 census figures, and the town records are at about the same level. And projections indicate that those trends are going to continue, and the Metropolitan Area Planning Council projections suggest that those 65 and over will grow to comprise 30% of all residents by 2030. And there'll be continued decreases in children. Increases in smaller households. For example, there was a 4.2% increase in the number of households between 2010 and 2018, compared to only a 2.5% increase in population, which basically means there are more smaller households, which is reasonable since we're talking about an aging population as well. And you can see in the average household size has dropped from 3.12 person in 1980 down to 2.57 by 2018. And you can see these demographic shifts as we're getting, more older residents and smaller households. We need smaller units. We need opportunities for downsizing. At the same time, the population of young adults and families has been decreasing. So the options for creating more starter housing for that population will continue to help diversify the social and economic composition of the community. Relatively high incomes, household income based on 2018 census estimates again was $116,750. And just to compare, the state figures are somewhat over 90,000, so significantly higher population. Oh, the county is 90,484. The state is about 80,000. Poverty is low with respect to the state, county, other communities, but it has been increasing. It went from 2.6% in 2000 to 4.8% 3%. So still low, and not the trend you want to see. And there are growing income disparities as well. I mean, one example is that 57% of households had incomes of over $100,000, and that's up from 45% in 2010. On the other end, 12% had incomes of less than $25,000, which is up from 10% in 2010. Same point, looking at tenure, the median household income of a homeowner household was $133,380 compared to the median household income of renter households of $26,792. You really can see a stark disparity there. And the town still has some significant special needs. And at this point, or at least based on the 2018 census figures, 23% of all those 65 and over have some type of disability total. And that'll be increasing as the population continues to age. 8% of all residents claim some type of disability. So let's go on to the next one. This just shows projected change in age distribution, and you know the top, the bottom, the blue bar is the 2010 census figures. The red is the 2020 projections from MAPC, and the top yellow one is 2030. And right away you can see almost all the age categories decrease. Particularly the children, this is children, and then you see this dramatic increase in those 65 years of age and older. And then this shows, just once again, kind of looking at tenure, the differences between the income distribution for those who are renters, which is the blue on the left, and this column of those, I think this is like $10,000 to $15,000 in income, and this is for home ownership, and this column is $150,000 in income and more. So you really see a very different scenario. Next slide. And then just to deal with housing trends. There has been some slowing down of new production. In decades before, it was fairly typical that you had production of at least 500 housing units. Based on 2010 to 2018, building permit activity documents 319 new units, 269 of which are single families and multifamilies in the remaining 50. There has been some tear down activity. Last year there were 10 units that involved demolition and replacement out of about 50 or so total units. So it's not as substantial as it is in other communities. And in Needham, it's almost all the units that are single families that are being built involve tear down activity. I think it's like 40% in Hingham. But it's still an emerging trend. And there is, not a surprise, a predominance of owner occupancy at 86% of all units, and single-family detached units at 84% of all units. And I should just say that for the state, it's down to those are down to about 62%. And there have been declines in rental and seasonal units. So rental units went from, for example, in 2000 there were 1,135 rental units. That declined to 1,030 according to the 2018 census estimate. whether they were that extreme, census estimates can be off a little bit, but there probably was some conversion of rental units into condominiums that accounted for some of that loss. And seasonal units have really declined as well. There were, for example, 1,080 seasonal units in 1980. That declined to 872, which is a significant decline by 2010. And according to the 2018 census figures, we're talking about 602. And that represents the decrease during that time period from 16% of all units to 7% of all units. And then just another point on the housing profile is that a significant portion of Scituate's rental units are subsidized, and part of the subsidized housing inventory at about a third. And I mean, the 2018 census estimates basically identified a 0% vacancy rate for both home ownership and rentals, which doesn't even account for normal housing turnover, which certainly reflects, very tight housing market and part of what's driving rising housing prices. By the end of 2019, the median single-family home price was $599,000. It decreased a bit, about $20,000 by April, and then I just checked today, and according to August, that's the latest time where these figures have been released, it's up to $620,000. So some fluctuation, but nevertheless, they're significantly high. Market rents are also high, a median of about $12,716. And to afford that median rent, assuming that you're spending no more than 30% of your income on housing costs, which is the typical threshold of affordability, and you put in some amount for utility costs, you'd need an income of about $116,000, which is the median household income based on the 2018 census figures, while the median household income for renters is $26,000, almost $27,000. And then, not surprising, when you have rising housing costs, you have widening affordability gaps, typically defined as a difference between what a median income earning household can afford and the median house price. So, based on that $599,000 median price, the affordability gap was about $63,000. Based on a $620,000 median house price, it goes up to $83,000. If you look at those earning at or below 80% of area median income, the gap widens to about $300,000. So it would then go up to about $320,000. And then we're talking about, it's also not a surprise as rising housing prices that more people are spending more than they should on housing. And based on the most recent data available, 31% of Scituate households were overspending, spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs, also referred to as having cost burdens. Additionally, 14% were spending more than half their income on housing costs. And then, of the almost 2,000 households with income at or below 80% of area median income, 75% had cost burdens, and 45% had what we call severe cost burdens, as they were spending more than half their income housing costs. And a particular concern are 95 seniors, 50 small families, and 105 younger single individuals who are spending more than half their income on housing costs and earning at or below 30% of area median income, among the most vulnerable residents in the community. And then the plan also includes the private housing market. The erosion of affordability has been significant. And next slide. This just shows, this is a distribution of assessed values for single-family homes for both this curve for 2014 and this for 2020. And you can just visually see the shift in values, the rise in the housing market. And you can also visually see this uptick of properties of more than $1 million. Which is kind of a growing luxury market in the town as well. So the plan, the housing needs assessment, the plan includes a section that basically groups indicators of need around to come at where the town should be prioritizing its resources and attention. Clearly, there's a shout out for more rental housing to deal with some of the most vulnerable residents in town. The 2015 plan had a goal of at least 75% of the affordable units that are being produced be rental. And the remaining 25% for home ownership, mostly first-time home ownership. This plan suggests that the plan adopt a more aggressive posture and move to 90% target to rentals and 10% for home ownership. And it goes through a rationale for doing so. At this point in your SHI, much more than 90% of the units are rentals. There aren't very many home ownership units. Home ownership units that are affordable tend to be the much lower scale, so it's harder to get to those annual housing production goals and to get over the 5 years to a meaningful scale. Plus, almost all the subsidies that are available by the state are targeted to rental housing. And another rationale is that rental housing has more turnover, and therefore more people benefit over time. Another one is that under 40B, rental development, all the units counted as affordable as part of the SHI, or it's towards housing production goals, as opposed to only the actual units in home ownership development. I mean, there are some other reasons that we list, but those are the primary ones. But there's still a recognition that town needs to produce some starter housing and for younger families to really establish some roots here and be able to afford to move into the community. It also shows, stipulates that there's a need for special needs housing for those people who have a disability, and that those with disabilities are likely to increase over the next number of years given the aging of the baby boomers and the residents in Scituate. It also acknowledges that there is an aging housing stock. Probably some of those units have deferred maintenance needs that require some attention and resources for improvement. So next one, we get to the housing strategies. I should mention we really tried to highlight where Scituate has made some significant progress in this plan. I think when the state reviews it, it should be able to, the town should have some bragging rights on the progress it's made in implementing parts of the last plan and continue to move forward to be in a better position to be proactive in promoting affordable housing. And some of that progress includes like the Lawson Green development, the transit-oriented mixed-use developments in the Green Bush area, some of the Housing Trust scattered site infill housing that has been created, the expanded inclusionary zoning components of various bylaws, and the new fair housing and affordability standards, updated and expanded DCN zoning, additional planning work, including the master plan, for example. And I just want to do a shout out. I've sent this draft and I've had a conversation with the consultants on the master plan. I think where this plan and the master plan can kind of reinforce each other would be helpful. And we called out the other planning work that's being done for North Scituate, for example, long-term planning for the downtown and the harbor, and as being kind of important current planning efforts. We also mentioned, the mass housing grant you got under planning for housing production and further capitalization of the housing trust. When we put together these housing strategies, there are a number of sources that we used. One is that the state does have pretty prescribed requirements on what you have to do in a housing production plan to have it approved, including having strategies address categories that are included in the regulations. The information that was in the updated housing needs assessment, it has some very preliminary information from the master plan, other plans and reports. I've had 2 meetings with the Scituate Housing Trust, as well as an initial meeting with Karen and Nancy Chapman. We've done some interviews with key housing stakeholders, and then we relied on some models of proposed actions that have been effective in other communities. So the strategies are grouped according to 3 categories. The first one is capacity building strategies. How the town can continue to build its ability to better promote affordable housing, housing diversity, a smart growth development, for example. First is continued focus on kind of a robust community outreach and education process. However, during times of COVID, that becomes increasingly challenging. But any housing effort, the plan offers a number of approaches that can be used to really reach out to the community and get input on housing-related efforts. It also talks about hiring a part-time housing coordinator. This is in previous plan as well. Somebody can work with the housing trust and implement the housing plan, make sure that the monitoring of affordable units is handled on an annual basis appropriately. The plan also does acknowledge that the town created a new planning position, that of the director of planning and development, which is a great step forward, given all the planning work that you guys are involved with.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
This is all fascinating information, and I'm just looking at sort of the capacity building strategies, and it looks like from the historical performance that it's going to take us about 67 years to get to 10% from now, if we go at our historical rate. So I guess my question is, is there a strategy that gets us there faster? Is there I mean, all this sounds like it's going to be sort of business as usual. And, you know, we on average, we added 5 affordable units per year between 2011 and 2020.
Well, you know, I guess there's a, you know, category in housing development and preservation strategies. I mean, you do have it's not exactly a project at this point, but conceptually in discussion, a large site that's being proposed for development across from the public facility building that might have 250 units and seems high. In any case, if that's done by a 40B and a rentals development, that's 250 units. Even if you had 150 units there, think how much progress could be made. And also, Lawson Green, you got 30 units there. Now that project takes tenacity and takes some time. And takes resources.
Really give us the opportunity to manage that. We just have to write.
You get to claim it as part of the SHI. It becomes an important part of your inventory for serving.
We did that, but you know, it's a development in the town that requires, you know, that bypasses the planning board for sure, and requires water and sewer for 250 homes, which we don't have, right? So I don't see how we're going to get there. And certainly we're not getting out from underneath the 40B thing for decades. That's like.
Well, if you meet housing production goals on an annual basis, you get out of it for a period of time. There are other instances where communities who have done 40R smart growth zoning overlays have been able to beat back what they consider hostile 40Bs because the state recognized that the town in good faith was trying to, you know, do something positive in smart growth and affordable housing development. You know, we have a section in the plan that just deals with challenges for development, recognizes that, you know, doing affordable housing isn't a slam dunk. There are lots of obstacles. And clearly, infrastructure for you folks and environment are, you know, major challenges. But I think given the thrust of the master plan, and something that I think is a very important component of the work that you're trying to do, is to try to guide development to appropriate locations where density makes sense, where you can actually incorporate more units and more uses. But that's going to take extending the sewer capacity. And that's something that the town has to be in water, and that's something the town's going to have to grapple with, or you're right. Probably it's going to be a slow process. Anyway, can we just, that was a very good question, and we maybe
figure out what we can do differently than just, you know, kind of business as usual.
All right, Steve, I think we need to let Karen finish her presentation and then
we try to get through this as quickly as possible. I won't try to go into too much detail. Okay, we'll skip to planning and regulatory strategies. So, you know, the top one was adopt new zoning for North Scituate. You folks have been in the process of working on that, trying to come up with ability to incorporate different types of housing in a setting that would be able to invite more density and mixed uses. And that could either be done through, you know, expanded VCN zoning, or 40R can be a potential tool as well. Adopt townwide inclusionary zoning. I mean, with your fair housing affordability standards, you have really expanded the mandates related to including affordable housing as far as developments, in particular bylaws. However, you know, numbers of towns have it on a townwide basis. where either the project has to incorporate a certain number, percentage of actual units, or the developer contributes payments in lieu of developing those units. And if that was in place, maybe there might have been some benefits from the Toll Brothers project, for example. Adopt housing guidelines. We've included this before. It basically kind of, the town goes through a thoughtful process about the types of 40B applications it might entertain that would be a benefit to the community, and puts it out there for developers who might propose a project in town. Allow residential development under more conditions, allowing the ability to have more diverse housing types in more locations to address a wider range of housing needs. Allow starter housing on non-conforming lots. There are, I think that the study that was done through the Mass Housing Grant identified 100 lots that didn't have environmental problems, but did have dimensional issues. So the plan says, is there a way of incorporating smaller units on smaller lots through zoning with some possible incentives and mandates? Pursue use of tax foreclosed properties for affordable housing. When properties become very valuable, there tend to be fewer tax foreclosures. However, if they do come up, to consider, instead of auctioning those properties off, conveying them to the housing trust for development as affordable housing. And explore the use of Chapter 40R, 40 Smart Growth Overlay District zoning that brings a number of financial incentives in addition to actual payments for the units that are proposed or likely to be created in any district. It also provides a greater competitiveness for state discretionary funding, including Mass Works grants, any kind of funding for schools, and I already mentioned the situation about the 40B piece, something to think of. Once again, the extension of sewer and water, the availability of that becomes an important, if not critical, part of making this type of, density, greater density feasible. Next.
Trumps all these.
Make suitable public property available for affordable housing. This is a required part of housing production plans, so we identified several parcels that might be considered for future development, such as the senior center, the New Kent Driftway parcel that's been in the mix for a long time. Those are examples. Support private development in line with local guidelines. Once again, going back to the affordable housing guidelines and being able to kind of call out the kinds of projects the town would like to see. Where, when, site, massing, design, that type of thing. Support small scattered sites, infill housing in existing neighborhoods, such as group homes, the homes that have the housing trust has been involved with creating for first-time home buyers, and even small clusters of townhouses, or taking larger homes and converting them to apartments or condominiums, as an example. Introduce a small repair grant program. There are numbers of communities that provide grants, usually about $5,000, in support of qualifying homeowners to make health and safety improvements to their homes. We give a couple examples of current programs for consideration. And then recently, a question came up about other communities that are establishing emergency rental assistance programs, given COVID, that mostly involve most of the communities, or at least majority of communities that use CPA funding, usually for sure a short-term duration, 3-4 months. There's a multiple of different payment options that have been used, but it might want to consider also dipping its toe into something like that. And then just the last slide to go over just on next steps. I assume from this meeting and then any comments that you have after the meeting, pass through to Karen, to me, and we'll make adjustments. And then at some point, we got to figure out a way to have some opportunities to engage the community in hearing about what's being proposed and having some opportunity input. And so that needs to be planned. And we will also need, in order to submit the plan to the state, both, as you know, the planning board approval and the select board, board of selectmen's approval to move this forward. I can say that the state, back when, was taking like 90 days to review and approve plans. They're moving very quickly right now, which is a good thing. All right, so we'll just open it up now.
Okay, I'll open it up to the board. All right, Patty, do you have anything you want to talk about?
It's just kind of depressing. I've said this to Karen, we spend all of our money on engineering developments and engineering documents, and on your very first page, on your second page, you talk about a growing income disparity. The distribution of wealth in this town is a little overwhelming sometimes, especially if you've lived here for a long time. I know it's an uphill battle all the way. It's like Steve says, 67 years to get to where we have to be. And every time you build a house, we add another low-income thing to that. And I know that we probably don't push for affordable housing, but people move here because of that. So that's all.
Okay. Rebecca.
Is she going to say something?
Go ahead.
I guess there's just, we got to figure out ways to put a little bit more in here. I know we've talked about it before, but it's tricky in this town. It's tricky all over this area.
Yep.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe we should look at some of the new zoning that goes in. Is any new affordable housing going in Greenbush?
Yes.
There is. So
At the Drew property, yes.
The Drew property.
Yes.
Oh yeah, rentals.
Rentals,
Yeah.
yes.
But we have a size limitation, so if you're below, if you're adding 7 or fewer units, you don't require affordable housing. We have a lot of, Greenbush is a lot of smaller lots, and so therefore, it's not gonna, some of the future development will need affordable housing in Greenbush.
Ben?
I guess my first comment is kind of goes back to what Steve was getting at, which is that we as a board, and maybe with your help, Karen, and going into this final version of the draft document, it might be good to just throw out a couple, from your experience as a planner, what are some real zoning initiatives that we could kind of get off the ground right now, and something that's a little more, almost more concrete, that we could just, all right, here's a good one, it's been successful in other communities, go for it kind of thing, rather than kind of the more overarching things that we need to do. So I guess a focus on what are some actionable items we can use in zoning reform kind of right off the bat to get us a little bit of a boost. That's just one of my comments. And then the other thing, I know we're mainly focusing on affordable housing stock as it's defined by the state and everything, but another thing to consider just anecdotally is that right now is also a really, really difficult market for people that are looking to move to town that are on a more limited budget. As you know, the median cost, I think you said it was around $600,000 for a single family home. And I have a lot of people in my peer group that have young families that either are from this town and want to move back, or, you know, since coronavirus, there's like a flight of people that are leaving more urban centers back to suburban areas. And I have a lot of friends that just, everything's totally outside of their budget. There's nothing that's scalable. We have all these, you know, and this is something for us to consider as a planning board. We have a lot of subdivisions with big, beautiful homes, but a lot of people in my generation don't want those, and they're overpriced and they can't afford them. And I guess that's like, it's kind of something that's, I'm just pointing out anecdotally because it might be sometimes that group gets a little bit lost in some of the census data when we're just looking at numbers, but it's definitely a concern that I have, and is a need that's there, is, I guess, more scalable and cost affordable housing, not from the state definition, but for people that are looking to purchase single family homes.
All right,
Well, can I just respond, just to give an example of something?
Yeah,
There
please.
is a strategy on allowing affordable housing or housing under more conditions. One of the things that's included there are kind of pocket neighborhood, cottage-style housing. That is a really good, I mean, that needs zoning. That is a very good vehicle for first-time buyers because the units are smaller, and they tend to be less. They tend to be, and they're clustered closer together, so land price is less. So that to get at the first-time home buyer and the affordability piece, good design, looking at pocket neighborhoods and clustered kind of cottage housing, I think is something that really could fit in well in this community.
Karen, I have to tell you, in our zoning bylaw for Greenbush, we have that very zoning. We do have it. It does exist.
But you've got, well, you know, and you've got some good movement in Greenbush with those two projects so far. Maybe something else will open up. Usually, you know, there's a small units around a green.
I understand.
Maybe something will happen.
That's a philosophical issue.
This is something that has been ongoing forever in this town. And 30 years ago, people were concerned that young people could no longer live here and their children would have to go someplace else. And I went to a seminar a good number of years ago, and there was a gentleman from UMass, Amherst, who was talking about housing, the very thing that you're talking about, and basically it's you drive until you qualify. So that is basically what has happened. People are pushing further and further and further out. One of the biggest issues that we have in Scituate is that you can't get there from here. We have no industry. We have nothing per se to bring people here to work.
And we don't have any affordable jobs for affordable housing.
We don't have the type of jobs necessary for that type of housing. We don't. And back in the 70s, tons of rental housing. But people moved out of the city, like they're moving out today, and they took it all. So it's happening. History is repeating itself. I don't know what the answer is. We're working at it. I know somebody wanted to put a Habitat for Humanity house on a piece of land that was vacant, owned by the town, and that was 10 years ago. The land is still available, and it never happened. So sometimes we're slower than a herd of turtles. This is a great plan, but to a certain extent, it is something that we have been talking about forever. And I'm not sure how we change this. I'm not.
You know, I hear your frustration. This affordable housing is not easy, but I think you have to acknowledge the progress that's been made. I mean, certainly you're not going to get to 10% in the next 5 years, but Lawson Green, I think, was a huge step forward. And I think even those little houses the Housing Trust has been helpful. And the mixed use properties in Greenbush. I think those have been a really big step forward, and the new zoning that you have. Hopefully developers will respond. And also you've got the commuter rail. So even if the jobs are in Scituate, you know, you've got the commuter rail, which is better than it was how many years ago?
This is true. Karen, we have to move on to a question and answer period, please.
All right, fine.
One more thing, and I would suggest you modify the report accordingly, is that all of these things are governed by available infrastructure. And in Scituate, we're really at wit's end in terms of sewer capacity and water capacity. And no matter how much you want to build, affordable housing in, dense areas and all of that, unless we have the infrastructure, it's not happening.
Which is why we
that
do.
goes for just new homes too.
Well, that's
So
why
I
the
don't think you can have a capacity building strategy without acknowledging the need to address, the elephant in the room, which is the infrastructure
I
capacity of
believe
the
that's
town.
in the plan, Steve. I think there's a portion.
We've mentioned it in a number of places in the plan, but I'll add it in other places.
It has to be in your capacity building strategy, right?
Well, it's highlighted in the,
Well, water and sewer.
yeah.
All right, we need to move
Other
on.
stuff can happen without
Steve, please. We need to move on to question and answers. Thank you. Your point is well
I'm
taken.
trying to give her input to her report.
Yes, and we take that. You've said, yes. All right, question and answers, please.
Q&A session has started.
If you'd like to make comment or make questions, please press *6 if you're on the phone.
Anybody there?
I just know you have some people on the line that might, from the Affordable Housing Trust, I don't know if they want to make any comments.
Okay.
Q&A session is over.
Okay. Karen?
So,
Yeah.
the planning board needs to get back to me comments if you have them on the plan, so I can get them to Karen, so she can start putting your comments in the draft plan. If you don't have time to review the draft plan, review that one page I sent you. That has tasks that basically all different boards have been assigned. So take a look at that and get me some comments, and I'll get them to Karen, and then we can proceed on with trying to get the final draft. Then we can go out to a public meeting, and then we can file, get a vote of the planning board and file with the state. Our plan right now is expired.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
And thank you, Karen, for your presentation.
Thank you for your patience.
All right.
Thank you, Shari, or whoever fixed that PowerPoint.
That was Sherry.
Sherry.
She's terrific.
Take
All right.
care now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, our next item is a Form A for 3 Gardner Road. Is there anybody here with that?
Yes,
Okay.
hold on, I have to unmute. Yeah, I gotta get him.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You are?
Hi, Rob Bigliotta, surveyor with Morse Engineering.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think they stay in our.
All right, would you make your presentation then, please?
Greg Morris is on the
Yes,
line.
I can. Hi, so I'm here with A&R plan for 3 Gardner Road here in Scituate. My name's Rob Bigliotta. I'm a surveyor with Morse Engineering. Currently, the property we are dividing is 3 and 15 Gardner Road, which is assessor's parcels 3-1-3 and 3-1-3A. we are taking those parcels and creating Lot 1, Lot 2, and Lot 3. This is an A&R plan because the lots being created meet the zoning requirements of area and fronted on a way. That's pretty much all I got. Anyone have any questions?
Karen?
So what they're doing is there's 2 existing lots out there now. They're breaking it into three lots. They all have access and frontage. Well, it's a beautiful area and it's not going to fit, but you have to endorse because it meets all the requirements. The only thing is the wetlands are not, wetland lines aren't approved by the Conservation Commission. However, it's 20,000 square foot lot. These are well over that, so I don't think your wetlands are going to impact your lot area.
All right, comments from the board? All right, do we have a motion?
All right, move to endorse as approval not required, a plan of land showing division of 350 Gardner Road. Assesses parcels 3-1-3 and 3-1-3A, Scituate, Mass. Prepared by Morse Engineering and sealed by Douglas L. Auburn for applicant owner Delillian C. Peters Trust, dated 8/10/2020, as the division of land shown on the accompanying plan is not a subdivision because every lot shown on the plan has frontage of at least the distance presently required under the Scituate zoning bylaw on the public way up Gardner Road.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Ms. Burbine?
Aye.
Mr. Bornstein?
Aye.
Ms. Lambert?
Aye.
Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Pritchard?
Aye.
All in favor, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have 9:15. Reduction.
Thank you, you guys are all set.
Yep, thank you very much. Morse Engineering. Good night. Now we have a bond reduction for Seaside at Scituate. Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
What is that noise?
It's that.
Oh,
That's what that is.
We tried.
Try.
I know,
Just
it's
shoot
fine.
it. Okay.
I don't read
Reduction.
Yes, I didn't know if it was me.
All right, do we have,
Should have Jeff Delisi and Keith Curran on the line.
all right, do we have Mr. DeLisi? Is he with us?
You do.
Oh,
Yes,
good.
I am here.
Oh, there you are. Okay,
Keith here also.
thank you. Tell us what you want, and then we'll tell you whether we will or not. Very
Okay,
simple.
great. So, Jeff DeLisi, Armberger, DeLisi, and Harrison here with Keith Curran, who's project manager over at Toll. Special permit condition number 59E requires that Toll post maturity in an amount adequate as verified by the town's engineers. That was verified and done. In August this year, we submitted a document requesting that the board consider reducing the amount of the bond, which presently sits at $3 million. The request is to reduce it by approximately $1.8 million to a total sum of $1.2 million. The request is for a reduction in the bond by 1.8, leaving a balance of 1.2. We submitted to the board a spreadsheet that you probably have in front of you detailing how we categorize this and arrive at that number. In that detail is an approximate, is an estimate of all the work remaining with an addition of 17% on top of that aggregate sum. And that 17% would be for contingencies that would be unknown. We've added 10% into that for inflation, and that's how we come to a $1.3 million number. And that document was shared with the town's engineers, of course, we've written, who are experts in understanding this kind of project and what remains. They reviewed it and they verified that they believe that an accurate amount of the remaining bond
should not be 1.2 million, but should be increased to 1.478, almost 1.479 million. And so they concluded that based upon most notably increasing the amount of contingency from 17% to about 25%. And we don't know why they decided to increase for unknown contingencies by approximately 8%. And we disagree with them, but we're willing certainly to honor their professional opinion. So I suppose what I'm saying to you right now is that we're satisfied with where Horsley Witten is at with their verification of this. So Steve is here. If you have any questions with Steve, that's really where we're at.
All right. Karen?
So we have Horsley Witten completed the surety estimate. As Mr. Delisi just said, it comes to about 1.5 million. I honestly don't feel that the board should release I think the board should hold more in a bond. I think that some of the work that Horsley Witten identifies, which I've given you the last 4 Horsley Witten reports, I've given you a violation. We have constant, continued violations for dust out there. We're 2 years into a project. I think that dust control should be taken care of by now. Mind you, there's no water truck even on the site. Some of the basins, which they claim were 100%, have been the same way for a year, and it's rough graded. You can't mow those slopes because there's large rocks, large pieces of stuff. The estimate does not include some of the site amenities, the bocce court, the pickleball court, the pool, which are, they're getting done, but they're not done yet. The estimate also gives no credit for the nature trail, which don't have an approved detail. Horsley Witten would recommend that they just finalize this detail that they've given us. Is it 3 inches? Is it 4 inches? Is it 2 inches? Is it 3 inches on the different layers? And tell us what the DOT spec is. But the big concern is that it's being installed on area that's not graded on either side. So you could have potential erosion. This is the time where you have to hold firm. And because landscaping too. So a lot of the landscaping in the buffer that was planted last year, some of that is dead. And the landscaping around the units and the units themselves look great. That looks good. But once you get onto the outskirts, that's where I question the intent of the developer to actually go back and fix that.
Okay. Comment from the board. Steve?
I'm inclined to agree with Karen. I don't see the need to reduce the bond at this point in time. It sounds like there's way too many open items and issues that people agree or disagree on are done. And,
all right, thank you.
At the end of the day, I don't see the need to release any bond at this point. There's a long way to go still.
True. Rebecca?
So the engineer is saying 1 million and Toll Brothers is asking for 1.4, is that correct?
No, Toll Brothers was asking for 1.2.
1.2.
Our engineer's saying 1.5, and I'm recommending to the board not less than 2 million. Hold 2 million in bond.
Okay.
Ben?
As to the amount, I defer to Karen. As to the philosophy of it, I agree with Karen. After reviewing the inspection reports and hearing your first-hand account of site visits, I haven't personally done a site visit, but to be honest, what I see from just the public ways driving around, there's a lot that is left to be desired in terms of the maintenance of the site, particularly dust and managing sediments and kind of just general housekeeping, as well as the health of the 60-foot landscape buffer area that is just not really meeting the expectations that I certainly had when we approved the landscape plan and the design concept. But again, I haven't personally done a site visit. That's just what I reviewed and what I see from the public way.
Patty?
Well, I did a site visit with Karen, and I absolutely agree with her. We shouldn't give them anything.
So Karen, are you suggesting that we keep it at 3 million?
I was suggesting that if the board saw fit, they could that they could reduce it down to 2 million, but
Why would we do that?
Because we've done work.
Oh,
I think we ought to get resolution on all what appear to be major differences in what you consider work being done and what doesn't sound like it's been done to satisfaction. I think that ought to be resolved before we talk about releasing
any money.
Keith with Tolbos, can I just speak to Karen's comments, please?
Sure.
So on the estimate, for example, like again, that your consultant has reviewed and recommending a 1.5 reduction. So on the comments, the nature trail that Karen mentioned, we can provide more information, but noting that is not included in this reduction at all. So that's a moot point. We are not getting any credit for that. We are working, it's a work in progress. We are finishing the grading on the side, and we can provide you that spec on the NHDOT. This is a very beefy spec, and we're actually looking for if you guys need to approve it, which I didn't see in the conditions, we can do that, but we want to finish this work. It's behind numerous homes that have already closed, and now's the time to do it so we can see the shoulders areas after we grade them. The dust control, we had a water truck out there when it was under land development. Before we paved, it was SLT. It is now Site Pro. We agree with Karen, it should have been watered on Wednesday. That truck's out there on occasion. Their yard is 1.5 miles away. So they don't have to leave their truck on the site constantly because it's able to drive on the road and they can get there in 5 minutes. But again, agreeing with Karen about on the violation, again, they should have been there watering on, it was Tuesday or Wednesday. But the truck, they are contracted to water. On fixing the berms, again, we are working on that presently, so we're addressing that. Basically, it's just a little bit of fine grading, and some of them rocks need to be removed. We are working on that. Sediment, we've had issues in the past. We haven't had any sediment releases in a long time. We have it fully under control. We spent a lot of money on that with pumps and everything else, so that's a new point now also. It has been in the past, but it's not anymore. In the amenity areas, those typically are not included in these types of bonds. And to note, it was never included in the original bond, so to include it now does not make sense. So these contingency that is in the Horsley Witten recommendation is 25%, which comes out to be about $270,000. That covers, that is a good buffer for you guys. So again, that's in there. So that's bumping you up. You take that out, we're talking about a 1.23.
Let me
so,
Keith, let me just break in. Sure. Are you willing to honor the 2 million that Karen is suggesting?
Yes, we disagree, but we'll honor that. Yes.
Okay, so just cut to the bottom on that. That's I suppose what we'd ask the board to consider is we are concerned about not releasing any amount of the bond because we have done work and we think it's fair, that's recognized in some form or another, and we disagree with the amount, but we're willing to honor it. We're moving forward. We're going to do the project the right way. That's adequate surety, and we hope that the board would give consideration to this concession. Thank you.
I never see anybody working on anything but buildings when I'm there. I haven't seen any earth movers. I haven't seen anybody working on those berms. I'm in there. I go by enough, but I never see anybody working other than housing construction.
Okay. All right, Karen?
So do you have a comment about what Ms. Lambert just said?
I could not hear it, I'm sorry, Karen.
She said that, every time she goes by, the only work that's being done is housing construction. And I kind of have to agree with a little bit of that. The past several times that I've gone out there, it just appears to be housing construction.
Never see anybody.
I mean, I'm trying to remember, Karen, the last time we reduced this bond, so we're not just talking about like this past month, we're talking about since the last bond reduction. I don't have the date in front of me, but this has been a while since we come before the board asking for a reduction. And tremendous amount of work has been done since that time. We finished, and more binder put in place. We finished the bottom of the basins. Again, I don't remember the exact date, but we're not just talking about within the past month. We're talking about since the last bond
The
reduction.
basins are not finished because the grass isn't growing. The side slopes aren't done.
Yes, but you'd still be holding based on what we're talking about, you'd still be holding $2 million, which is $500,000 above and beyond what your consultant is saying.
I agree.
All right, then that's what we'll do.
I mean, honestly, they have done some work.
Some work, but not all of it.
No, but not all of it.
Okay.
And I would recommend that if the board does go for bond reduction to $2 million tonight, that you don't release the rest of it till the job is complete.
Totally and signed off.
Right.
Well,
Yes,
hold
Bill.
on, we would hope that you would at least consider a request.
Depends.
Never know where we're going to be at. I think it's what we're trying to do is reduce the amount of the bond based upon percentage of work that is completed. And if we come back to you in 2021, a year from now, and we only have $500,000 worth of work left, we would hope that you would take the position that you still get to hold on to a surety of $2 million. That just doesn't seem fair to me.
Well, we will cross that bridge when we get to
Did
it.
you plan to come back?
We have no. I mean, I don't know. I can defer to Keith. We've been back twice as work has progressed, and
Third request, right?
This is the
I
third.
don't
Yeah,
know.
this is the third request, correct. On an 8.6, like, yeah, I mean, we would be coming back in like 2 months. The earliest we'd be coming back would be a year from now. That would be the earliest.
With a request.
With a request,
Using numbers, I
yes.
don't know who they are. I don't know if you want to open it to the public. Just a public hearing.
All right,
So, how much work is left?
Keith?
In general, it's probably about, based on my original spreadsheet that I submitted, about 20%.
But wait.
So you're saying there's only 20% of all of the site improvements left to be done?
That's correct.
I find that
No,
hard to
mine.
believe. I
A
don't
big
think so.
portion of the site is it has been done. I mean, I can run down the list if you'd like. We're talking about environmental, the clearing, the grubbing, the grade, the earthwork is a huge part of the work. And then, of course, we have all the binder down, which means we have all the utilities are done. Except for the services to homes we built. Water, sewer, drainage is all complete.
You know what?
That's a big part. That's a big part of the project.
All right, Keith, we can go back and forth, and I think what we're gonna do is reduce it from 3 million to 2 million, and then a year from now, when you come back, we'll discuss it at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
We should probably open it up for.
Is that it?
All right, is there any public
We have to
comment?
go to a Q&A session because there are some people on.
All
I
right,
don't-
fine.
Q&A session has started.
If you have a question or a comment, please hit star 6.
Is he really doing that? I'm clicking it.
Who is it?
Jeff?
Jeff is still there.
Jeff, do you have a question or a comment?
I thought I muted myself, but apparently I asked a question. My apologies, because I was afraid Ann was going to yell at me for ambient sound.
You better be careful there.
All right, so you have no question.
No. Okay. Anybody
All right.
else?
No one else.
No one else.
I'm gonna end it.
Okay, end it. All right.
Q&A session is over.
All right. Patty? Motion.
I move to accept Toll Brothers' request to reduce the amount of the bond being held for the Seaside and Scituate residential cluster project by the planning board from $3 million to $2 million for completion of the project. The current bond is to remain in effect until the new bond is provided to the town planner.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Ms. Burbine?
Aye.
Mr. Bornstein?
Aye.
Ms. Lambert?
Aye.
Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Pritchard?
Aye.
All in favor? Thank you, unanimous.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
We did that. We have 8 Bayberry Road request for stormwater permit extension.
Yes, let me undo.
Where is he?
He's coming, right? I can just, do you want me to read?
You just can go out and holler.
Wait, do I need to say Rebecca's refusing?
Yeah, we'll say that. I mean,
He's on the line.
all right. So why don't we say that right now? Let the record show that Rebecca Lewis is recusing herself and has left the room.
Joe?
All right, Joe?
Yeah?
Hello?
Well, hello. Star
We've
6.
got 2 different lines on, so let me try.
Oh.
Joe?
Hello?
Oh, here he comes. Okay.
This is silly.
Joe?
He's lighting up.
All right,
He has to close one of them, that's why.
what?
He has 2 screens.
Someone
open.
trying to talk, I hear.
And this is Joe Joyce. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Joe.
Thank you. Joe Joyce, 39 Ocean Ave. I'm here tonight regarding 8 Bayberry Road. I'm requesting an extension on a existing stormwater runoff permit that I have for 8 Bayberry Road. The reasons for this is I have a new buyer for the property. Previous people that wanted a house built were building a significantly larger home. My permit runs out in February of 2021, this winter. I had planned to go ahead and do the work that's required on that permit, but the new people are building a smaller home. I'll have significantly less impact on the lot, significantly less impervious area. And I thought it would be best to let them design their plan, bring it to the town, get the feedback, and see what changes there be in the design and the effect. Instead of rushing to do the work before the winter, I thought it would be best if I could have an extension. This would give them time to have their plans drawn, the engineers to do what needs to be done, and bring it into the town to be reviewed. And at that particular point, that work could be done in the spring if for some reason that it didn't work out with these fires.
Okay. Karen?
So this was a stormwater administrative review permit, and Mr. Joyce has been actively pursuing a buyer for several years. The stormwater regulations and bylaw require a vote of the planning board to extend the permit. I would recommend that you extend the permit for 1 year. He's been making a good faith effort to develop it, and I see no downside to extending it.
All right. Comments from the board? Anybody?
Do you want
I
me to
think,
open up
I
the
think
public?
I think it would be fine to extend it. as well.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Seems like we've run across,
Open to the
enough troubles over the last 6 months that you shouldn't be too worried about providing a little extra float here if they need it.
Patty, do you have a...
Wait, we need to go for a formal Q&A.
All right, quick Q&A.
We're just gonna go to a quick Q&A. If you have a question or a comment, please hit *6 on your phone when the session starts.
Q&A session has started.
comments?
I'm gonna say no.
No? Okay.
Q&A session is over.
Thank you.
I move to accept Joseph P. Joyce's request as the trustee of 5212 Bayberry Road Realty Trust to extend the stormwater permit for 8 Bayberry Road for 1 year until February 12, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Ms. Burbine?
Aye.
Mr. Bornstein?
Aye.
Ms. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Pritchard?
Aye.
Thank you.
All in favor, unanimous, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, alternate seat member selection. Who was that?
That's a chair.
My goodness.
Alright, so you guys are going to be before the Board of Selectmen. They have a joint roll call vote on October 6th for an alternate member. So the discussion tonight is to decide which of the 4 people that you interviewed is your preference, and then we'll provide that information to the Board of Selectmen, and then you'll have to be, they'll probably do it as a
It'll
Zoom
be
call. A roll call vote on October 6th.
Okay, what are people, who wants whom? Addie?
I like the civil engineer. McLean, was that his name?
Robert McLean, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Rebecca?
I like the woman.
Paulette?
Yeah. But now I
Ed?
don't remember them in the order that they came from.
And then I like the next.
I thought everyone was pretty strong.
Putnam.
I also do like, I guess, in terms of background. I mean, everyone is obviously very enthusiastic and interested in the job, which is part of a big part of the battle. In terms of technical background, kind of what Patty said, Mr. McLean, like the fact that he is cognizant of, because he works for FEMA with the flood stuff, and he's very up on that.
I think that's important.
I heard some.
Which one was he? Like,
He was the very intense man who was very philosophical.
Number two?
Third, I think. Third.
He was very.
Younger gentleman.
Beard.
Beard.
The youngest, other than the woman of the bunch.
A red
It was
check
Paul,
shirt.
I believe it went Paulette,
couldn't
Lars
see it.
Holmquist, Robert McLean, and Christian Putnam.
He was
So
just
Paulette-
very
Paulette
philosophical, had a lot of interesting things. And why I like him is that I learned a lot from Steve Pritchard as an engineer. I learned a lot from Ben as an engineer. I learned a lot from Ian from other things. I think another engineer, for what he does, will be hugely beneficial to us.
All right. Okay. Steve?
I tend to agree with Patty and Ben that Robert McLean would be a good choice. Not that others would not be. Just if you have to make a difficult decision, I guess I would be inclined to lean towards Robert as well.
Okay. And I have to say I would too. All right, so what's the next step?
Except me invite.
So you need to just make a motion, that, you're gonna, I'll give you this and you can discuss 2 names. So just, you can say, I recommend,
Okay.
right? Where I highlighted, it's funny, right?
I move to recommend Robert McLean to the Board of Selectmen as the next alternate planning board member.
Yep.
Is there a second?
Can I see that?
Second.
All in favor?
Ms. Burbine?
Aye.
Mr. Bornstein?
Aye.
Ms. Lambert?
Aye.
Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Pritchard?
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. We will suggest Robert McLean to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Reach
you.
out to him first. To make
Yeah,
sure he's
we-
Yes, we
still-
will reach out to
Make
him.
sure he's still.
What?
So he
We will,
knows.
we will reach out to him. He could be listening right now, so.
Hello.
Okay.
We need to find out if,
Availability.
Yeah.
right, if the selectmen want him available on that night too.
Yeah, we'll take care of all that.
We'll take care.
And do we need to send notes to all the other
We will
applicants?
send, I have all that.
Oh, you're
ready to go.
so good.
Excellent.
So good.
We'll start it next.
Vote of the selectmen.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be done after the vote
Of the selectmen, okay.
Was the alternate, that was like in the most recent election that came up again?
The alternate position will be until the next election. So the alternate.
Only until the next election?
Only until the
Oh,
next
okay.
And they have to
election.
run again.
The alternate is going to have to run
Okay.
for that position in,
May.
spring, wherever town,
Think I do too,
wherever the
right?
election is.
I think I run
What
it.
other seats are up then?
I think mine
Do you
is.
know?
Is it me?
You.
Yeah, I think it's.
I think it's Patty.
I
Yeah.
think Patty is up in the spring, Patty as well.
Yeah, I think Patty is up, and then
Steve are in
Steve are in
22.
2022.
All right. Approved minutes?
Got the glasses. I think I went home and got the glasses. I move to approve the meeting minutes for September 10th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Ms. Burbine,
Aye.
Mr. Bornstein,
Aye.
Ms. Lampert,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Pritchard.
Aye.
Thank you, all in favor.
Accounting.
I move to approve the requisition of $1,955.05 to Horsley Witten Group for the peer review of Phase 2 at Seaside at Scituate, for $2,065.10 to Horsley Witten Group for peer review services of Phase 1 in the bond reduction for Seaside at Scituate, for $3,427.50 to Harriman Associates for the consulting services on the master plan, and for $7.55 to WB Mason for office supplies.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Ms. Burbine,
Aye.
Mr. Bornstein,
Aye.
Ms. Lambert,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Pritchard.
Aye.
Thank you, all in favor.
All right, liaison reports. Does anybody have anything?
I went to my charter review meeting on Zoom.
Oh,
So that
wow.
was good. We started going through that until we got Zoom bombed. And that was the end of that.
Nice.
We have what?
What does that mean?
I'm sorry, Rebecca, I couldn't hear you.
We got
You went to what meeting?
Rebecca, you have
Charter Review Committee.
Oh,
I mean, it was a Zoom call. So we're going through the charter and, renewing it, making it a little more updated. So, but yes, then we had some people that hopped in on the Zoom that were not,
They were not invited.
they were not invited. I think it's an open meeting, so it had to be open, but they had no interest in what we were talking about.
They wanted something else. And so, what did you do?
We had to hop off quickly.
Oh. Who's on the committee with you, Rebecca?
Excuse me?
Who else is on the committee with you?
Karen Canfield. It's on.
I don't know.
You don't know.
That's okay.
Okay. All right, Ben, do you have anything?
Linear?
Marla.
Nothing, I have to catch up with EDC because I'm on that now, but nothing with water resources. I would say, just from water resources perspective, this isn't anything to do with the committee, but we're obviously still in severe drought conditions in eastern Massachusetts, and there's no sign of that getting much better right now. So I think our issues in town with water availability are only going to get worse in the short term, even despite the fact that we're now into fall. Other than that, master plan, there's an advisory committee meeting next Tuesday night, the 29th, whatever night of the week that is, to go over the dry run of our public hearing or public workshop, which is the last public workshop that will be done virtually on October 13th. So if you have any comments or you want to be involved, next Tuesday night advisory committee meeting, and hopefully everything goes off without a hitch. The consultant is really taking the lion's share of all of that planning and implementation, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Patty?
I listened to the zoning. They're building the house on Stone Ave. They're raising and reconstructing. But I did listen to the Cohasset Water Commissioner's report about our sewer. It's not looking good for Scituate. Cohasset is really stalling. They're really concerned about their own residents. Very disheartening. I would tell everybody to go, and you can see it online, you can listen to it, I can send you a link. Steve in particular, you'd be really interested in that. Yep. They are pulling way back. So, I don't know, the default would be for Scituate to go up 3, I have no idea, but.
Well, we have a pipe that goes up the,
Oh no, the man told us the other night that did we know that we had a pipe that went from the MBTA up South Main Street? It was like brand new news to this man.
well, I don't know where he's been. And wait until Hull shuts Cohasset off when their contract is up. That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Problem with these
Steve?
trying to tie across towns like this is it's very difficult to get something like this done.
Yes.
Everybody's trying to protect their own population first, you know.
True.
Is that why Cohasset's doing that?
Yeah.
They
Does it
have,
have anything to do with the fishing or the?
no.
No.
No, that would be very trite if that was the thing. Yeah.
Unlike Scituate, they have sewer commissioners and the Board of Selectmen, so it's been kind of a,
It's a power struggle.
it's a bit of a struggle. And Hull, in the meantime, does have the capacity. And part of, I think, what somebody explained to me, what happened was, when initially Cohasset signed on to Hull, the price from Hull was less than what Cohasset was charging their people.
Yep.
And then, when Hull went up, it got kind of dicey. So, 100,000 gallons a day from North Cohasset goes into Hull. It's a contract, I understand. And Hull has they need to do some improvements too. So, they can cut back, and that means that they would save money, but they'd never be able to expand again, their capacity. So, when the contract for Cohasset comes up, if they were unwilling to cooperate, they're just going to turn it off. And then Cohasset is polluting the cove and the harbor.
Or it has been for years.
And has been for years. So DEP is going to come down on them big time. It's just a matter of time. So that's what's new in that aspect.
It's on the wrong side of the harbor.
No, but with Cedar Point, and then their next step is Oceanside Drive, there is the potential of being able to do something. Who knows? Time will tell. At any rate, CPC met, and they are taking applications. Just got one for benches for Cedar Point. There's talk about redoing the stone wall along Country Way opposite the Merritt property, but who knows who owns that stone wall. It's a matter of opinion, you know, and a few other things. So, and then a lot of projects have been finished, some are still ongoing, and what they did too, the field project is just about finished, and so we have, CPC has put it out over 10 years because the interest is something like 2%. So that it's $200,000 that will, or thereabouts, that will come out of CPC, which will leave CPC with money to do other projects. So it was voted, and that was decided to be, it was a smart thing. So, anything else? Planning?
So Design Review Committee is meeting on Wednesday night to do 4852 New Driftway. We remain very busy, and you know, we're trying to do one main thing a night, but you have all these other requests that come in with A&Rs, you know, accessory dwellings, surety, permit extensions, so that's what we're trying to move on. I am told that in the next month, hopefully, we should have the water study.
Okay,
Okey dokes.
yeah, all
You're
right.
gonna have to update it for a more difficult route here than the
You're right. Okay,
Taking so long.
That's, I mean, that's all.
that's all.
Um,
Yes, Steve?
Yeah?
Karen, and just in terms of the input you want on the housing plan, is it just a set of comments, or do you want somebody to really, I mean, I'm not gonna wade through, the entire report, but,
Well,
I was thinking just a set of summary comments.
summary comments are perfectly fine. I mean, the strategies,
Okay.
if you don't agree with the strategies, then I think we have to say something. That's the most important thing. I mean, I've already pointed out at least 4 times that a 40R, 40S is
Not gonna
a
happen.
happening thing, because you have to have
Right.
certified sewer capacity, and it's not there.
Right.
We tried to do this a few years ago. And
I think we're, just should be resigned to the fact that we're never getting out from under the 10% affordable housing
no,
thing.
we're not.
Right? Not for at least a half a century.
And we'll all be dead, so it doesn't matter.
So just, I mean, some basic, really, I think the strategies is the most important thing. If you could get me comments on that, that would be great.
Okay.
And the sooner the better.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Well, let me ask you just a question about that. Is there a way for us to have more specific and deliberate input on the 40B stuff?
Is there a way for the planning board to have more?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
We can comment.
we can comment on any 40B project.
No, but is there a way for us to change our bylaws or anything else
No.
that would give us that,
No.
afford us that opportunity?
No, it's a state thing.
State.
Nope.
I know it's a state thing. I'm just saying, is there a way for us to sort of dovetail with that, change our bylaws in a way that would give us more input?
Well, I think you did that with the zoning with Greenbush, I think, kind
I
of,
mean, I think
sort of.
that we're not the permitting authority, so I think the best way we can do it is provide strong comments to the ZBA. Right now, there's no projects that have no new projects with any new project eligibility letters. There's talk of two 40Bs, but neither one of them has a project eligibility letter. There's talk of, this, big one up, Booth Hill Road area. Then there's talk of a smaller one on Old Oaken Bucket Road. But,
Yeah.
the town
The
has.
Booth Hill one is the 250 units they were talking about?
Yep.
Yeah.
And of those, how many of them would be affordable?
If it's rental, 100%.
It would be another Avalon, Steve.
Well, even Avalon, you couldn't call their rents affordable.
But because they're apartments, 100% of those units apply.
So you have to also, Herringbrook Meadow is not on the subsidized housing inventory, and of course, I think that's on a hiatus. Stockbridge Landing is not on the subsidized housing inventory. That's, I think, that's undergoing construction. Drew's not gonna
Right.
get there till it's all built, and Walden Woods, it's back permitted. And Lesson Green's already on the subsidized housing inventory.
Karen,
Right.
the one on 3A going towards Marshfield, there were trucks coming out of there the other day when I drove up.
I think they're stabilizing that. The name of the project is gone. The picture is no longer there.
Vogels shut them down because they were selling loom out of there.
Oh, is that what it was? It was a big truck.
They
Yeah.
were selling loam out of there, and I was told that operation was supposedly shut down.
Mhm.
But they still have dust control stuff there, etc., and they're supposed to be doing stuff.
I was just thinking this
Anybody
goes,
get a security bond on that one?
Not us.
Not us.
Steve, I was just thinking like back to your point about the bylaws and the 40B. Like,
Yeah.
I know we never get to like vote on this stuff or like put in conditions, but, you know, we have the DRC. They're advisory, you know, to us. I wonder if some way the planning board could be advisory to ZBA when we have 40B hearings. So it's a more formalized process that we get to review this stuff. And no, we don't vote on it. We just, you know, discuss it and write a, you know, we can vote on what we want to say in our letter, but then we write a comment letter to them and they can take it under advisement. I mean, I don't see why we couldn't do something like that.
We have. In the past, we have.
In a bylaw, though.
No, you don't need a bylaw. You don't need it.
But that would compel the zoning board to do
The
it.
one on 3A.
What?
We didn't do that with the one on
The
3A.
one on 3A was approved way back in the early 2000s.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was in court for a long time.
10 years.
Oh, I
And then they modified it a million times.
And then they modified it, right, exactly. And Stockbridge Landing, I think, was in court too, approved in the early 2000s as well.
I think it's earlier
These
than
are
that,
not- These are not new
Okay.
projects.
Stenbeck Place, that was the same thing.
It was in court for a long time.
For a long time, and I was on the planning board, and yeah, we made a lot of comments about that. So,
I didn't know that.
If another one comes in, we will obviously get copied on it because they have to include us for comments. And, you know, we can ask for the stuff in electronic format and get it to you. And we could all agree on a comment letter.
right. Which is really all we can do at this
And
point.
somebody be at the hearing to express our comments.
But I think the issue that Steve wants to talk about is that because it's a 40B, they don't have to come to us about water.
They have to go to the town.
Okay, the Board of Selectmen is gonna give it to them.
Well, that goes without saying.
So the housing, little switch, but the housing trust has that one more piece of property that they, I think it's the one you were talking about, that they could probably put a two-family on.
Where is this?
I can find out, but I know they have one.
Well, there's another piece of property on Driftway with the two that are down there. There's another
That's
one.
probably the one. So how can we help them get money, somehow get that built?
The housing authority received from the
The
town,
housing trust.
housing authority
Yeah.
received land that's right at the triangle of Driftway and Kent Street.
Yeah.
Okay? They were making noises a year or two ago about having a private developer come in and build something. And the neighbors were ballistic because they feel that they have been put upon between the sewage treatment plant, et cetera, et cetera. So, nothing was done for years because Agnew said that they couldn't hook up to sewer. And at one point, there was a discussion about putting the senior center there. So, there is that property. Is that the one you're thinking of?
I don't know, when I was in one of the meetings, they said they have a piece of property that they thought they could probably put a two-family or two townhouses.
Well, there was property on Stockbridge Road.
Could be there, I don't know
I
exactly.
think that's the Stockbridge
Yeah, I
Road.
think
Because
it's
I think the
Stockbridge
one on
Road.
Driftway is as big as North River. It's big, it's
It's a big
The one I'm
piece.
talking about is not big.
No,
no,
this
the
is
one-
big.
This is big. It's as big as the two that are already down there.
Yeah, big. So, all right, anybody else, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. I'll entertain Steve's motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Burbine,
Aye.
Mr. Bornstein,
Aye.
Ms. Lambert,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Pritchard.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night,
We are
Steve.
adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. I have to tell you, I watch all those Zoom